Hi, Hilton here. I'm recording this intro from the warm and sunny city of London in the United Kingdom. Yes, believe it or not, first of all, I'm in London for a few days, so a slight change of location. And believe it or not, number two, it's actually a very nice, warm, sunny day here. A little bit unusual for London, but great for a nice summer day here. And I'm here for a wedding of a good friend of mine, so nice for him to have the warm, sunny day for the wedding itself. Anyway, on to today's show. This episode is the first of the panel discussions that I recorded at TechEd South Africa earlier this month, where we had a great chat with some local SharePoint experts and community leads about user adoption. The sound quality is unfortunately not great in the episode because there was a bit of a problem mix-up with the microphones, so I ended up using a backup cheapy mic that I had handy with me. But I think it's still quite a worthwhile discussion, and some excellent ideas came out, both from the experts and from the audience as well. So I've decided to post the episode, and hopefully you, the listeners, will be able to get some value out of it at least. As always, if you've got any feedback on the shows though, please email me at feedback@TheMossShow.com. And with that, let's jump straight into the episode.
I was proud and I was standing. I was lost in a crowd, but now this room is abandoned. Everybody keep on fading out. I was strong.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to the SharePoint panel discussion. I'm going to be recording this. So the guests this afternoon have been very kind and volunteered to actually allow me to record this as an episode for the podcast. So you guys will be the live studio audience. I feel like it's like the old 1980s Cosby shows. Like this was recorded before a live studio audience. But yeah, it's a little bit different, something new for me as well. But we'll see how it works out. Hopefully it'll come out okay. What I'm going to do is we've got quite a sensitive mic here, but it's a little one. Unfortunately, what we were planning didn't work out, so everybody's going to speak very loudly, even though we're sitting next to each other. And any questions that you guys do have, I'll repeat them to make sure that it does get picked up. But with that, let's kick off. The topic is SharePoint build it and they won't come, and it's a question for some of our local SharePoint experts. I'm going to ask you first of all to each introduce yourself, and then we'll kick off with the actual topic. So let's start. Let's do ladies first.
I'm Veronique. I've come from a project background at ABSA Bank. I'm no longer there, but a very large implementation at ABSA. When I started, I was the second person on the entire platform, and when I left, we were 15,000 people and 1,800 sites. So I pretty much project managed that whole thing, and here I am today to help you guys with some of the learning curves that I went through, and to hopefully save you some of that pain and suffering, because there's lots of it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Michael O'Donovan. I'm actually just a SharePoint guy at Microsoft. I'm a technical chap, and I've been hearing a lot from customers and some partners, but mostly customers, about how much they've kind of spent implementing SharePoint and not necessarily getting the user adoption that they anticipated and expect. And so we've been going on this mission for the last few months to try and figure out why this is and how we can help. So hopefully I've got some little bits that I can help with and share. But I think most importantly for me, I'd like to hear from you. If you've got implementations that are successful or not so successful from an adoption perspective, and what are the things that you're doing or can think of in order to kind of help from that perspective. So that's me.
My name's Robert. I work for a company called BB&D, and we've got about 400 developers and IT pros, and I get to manage the SharePoint site there and a couple other portal technologies we have, and try to get people to use it, which is never easy when you have a lot of developers who all just want to write code. And I'm a community lead in SA Architect as well as in Information Worker.
In fact, everyone here is, all of you guys are leads for the Information Worker, so I'm going to pimp the community and say, everybody please do check it out. They have some awesome events up in Joburg and hopefully starting down in Cape Town soon as well. We have a SharePoint Saturday this coming Saturday. Anybody here from Cape Town? So a couple, please come and check that out. Joel Olsen and Eric Harlan will be spending an entire day of their holiday sharing some stuff with us, so please come and support that, and expect to see some good content coming out there.
And it's free.
And it's free.
Yeah.
I think there's even food.
Is anybody from Port Elizabeth? Okay, there's going to be an IW Port Elizabeth starting very shortly as well. So just come to the community lounge and we'll give you details on that. Or go to the website.
Okay, so let's jump into the discussion. I've got a couple of questions prepared, and I'm going to ask you guys, please, to throw in some of your questions as well. But maybe let's pretty much set the scene. Michael started it off quite well. A lot of companies have paid money for certainly a MOS version, let alone a WSS. I spoke in some of my sessions. I don't know if anybody came along to those, but we spoke, for example, in the web publishing session about how structuring your content is important to be able to make it navigable so that people can actually find what they're looking for. Search becomes important as well so that also people can find the content. But that's only if they're coming to the site. If nobody's even firing up your portal or they're coming to one specific library or things like that, that's not really adoption of the platform. So I'd like to ask each of the panel members and each of you guys as an audience as well to maybe throw out specific problems that you see within user adoption, if we can narrow them down to a couple of key issues that we can discuss, and then we can talk through some solutions around that. So do you guys want to maybe start? Robert, we ended with you, so maybe you want to start the...
Put you on the spot,
So quite a common problem I see with user adoption is actually just throwing every possible feature and piece of information on the site at users all at once. And they can sort of just get overloaded and go, oh, this is too big for me and I don't need to know.
Okay, so I'm going to call that feature overload.
Okay. Where to start?
Okay.
Nobody knows.
So, there's a subcategory in that. Where to start? Veronique, what's your key user adoption?
Feature overload, when they don't get enough support from other IT guys, they'll try and figure it out on their own, and then they'll get to a certain level, and then they'll just walk away because they get stuck. And then they'll build it all wrong, and they just get frustrated, and then that's a game over, and dormant sites hit.
So could we list that as training?
Training and support.
Okay.
Skills, lack of skills, available skills.
I'll say training, support, and skills.
Yeah.
Michael?
Okay, so I'll spend half an hour. So what I'm seeing is there's scenarios in SharePoint where we are getting great adoption. Okay, and for the most part, those are around specific business solutions that a user has to use the solution for in order to get their job done. If I apply for leave, I have to go through the system and I have to follow the process through the leave application form on SharePoint. There's adoption, they have to use it if it's working. Where we're seeing less adoption is more around collaboration scenarios. So it's an easy thing to say, hey, don't email your document around, put it on a SharePoint site and send a link. But who's actually doing that? And it's those kind of scenarios where users, I would say for the most part, they might know that they should be doing it, but they're not doing it because it's not easy enough or they're not forced to do it. I'm not too sure why. But it's kind of like those collaboration scenarios where they're just not doing it. I don't know if that kind of...
Can I summarize both of those? I think you've actually kind of given a bit of an answer to some of it as well, but I'd say both of those is no compelling reason. The first scenario, people were using it because they were literally forced, compelled to use it.
Yeah.
But maybe let's list that one. And let's see if we can get a few more. Can I open it up to the audience? Any other ideas? Anybody else?
Using one person to do everything in SharePoint.
Okay.
There's no clear division as to what a SharePoint specialist is supposed to do or an administrator is supposed to do. So you get one person that does the deployment, the development, web parts, support, everything, instead of clearly defining those roles.
Okay, so I also see a lot of that, I'm guessing you guys as well. I think part of it's the lack of understanding of the roles, lack of clarification. But it's all very well to say we want a guy to do X. You've got to find that guy as well. So it's skills shortage as well. So let's put those down.
Any other ones?
Site navigation. We've spent a lot of effort in that. I'm not sure we've still got it right. Okay. To see how the users experience it, because you can see how users get lost in SharePoint.
So site navigation, is that...
They can turn it into a glorified file server instantly. Yeah.
Moving from a junkyard to a new junkyard.
Yeah.
So site navigation, information architecture, is that...
Yeah. I'm going to put that down, if you don't mind, as information architecture, because it's also a thing that Michael and I were discussing that we see quite a lot. I think let's touch on it, but also the next session is going to look particularly around architecture. But that certainly is a big problem. Misusing SharePoint is also... Okay, cool.
The other one? Yeah.
I just want to add to point two though. There seems to be a lot more blogs and information for the technical people, but not much for the administrative type people.
Yay!
So
Somebody who agrees with me.
So you're giving them the power, but then there's not enough to support them so that they are functional on their own. And that, I think, is the limiting thing. And as you were saying earlier, where they get to a point and then they just stop because there's nothing leading them on any further. And I think we need to maybe just elaborate on the two.
Yeah, I think let's definitely unpack this more. Let's jump into the solutions in a moment. I think maybe Veronique can pick up on that one as a first stab. But any other different types of concerns?
Using SharePoint as a document management server, it becomes a bit tedious. There's too many documents and there's many levels, and searching for those documents. And part of the training is if people use spaces and things like that, it causes a lot of problems with those documents.
Can we list that under one of these, or do you think it's a separate one?
Maybe under information architecture.
Product nuances. Yeah. Okay, so
I work for Microsoft, so I have to be very careful on how I say this, you see. So, I don't know, product nuances. And I mean, there's some specifics. I think what you're saying is there's some specifics in the product which might make it a little bit more complicated. Well, maybe best practices.
Yeah.
But not from an IT perspective, what we're talking about from a user perspective.
Okay, so I've got number 7 is product scope, and then number 8 is best practice. I think that's quite a few. If you've got any others, we can see how time goes, but I think that probably covers quite a few.
Maybe just adding to the bottom there, I think it's a one-size-fits-all, or a marketing along with best practices. It's an 80-20 approach. You have to adopt SharePoint specifically to what requirements are, not to put it in and it can do everything, because that in itself could be a threat to the product.
So actually, maybe let's put under best practices, let's put some governance there as well. Okay. So let's go with it, Veronique. You had a good start on the training and support one.
Okay, I'd really like to know, first of all, what our audience is. So, who is using SharePoint right now? Show of hands. Okay, who's end users?
Pretty much everyone except the sound guy.
Developers?
Few end users, okay. About 40%
Access to
developers.
central admin or SSP?
Not too many there, okay.
So we're going to go mostly from an end user perspective then, and then you guys can handle the dev stuff for the techies out there. Which one should we tackle first then? Okay.
So this is my take on it, and I'd love to get your feedback. There's loads of training. There's loads. There's too much. There really is too much training, and even end user training, there's too much. If you go onto Microsoft's site and you go and look under SharePoint end user training, WSS or MOS, there's loads. There's a YouTube channel just dedicated, and it's got videos on how to do stuff in SharePoint, how to add a document, how to create a list, kind of user and power user stuff. So literally YouTube videos. There's a few blog sites, endusersharepoint.com, specifically for end users, and getthepoint.com, which is just end user stuff. So I don't think it's a lack of content. I think that the problem is it's not necessarily specific enough for a user's job. So for example, it's great that it shows me how to upload a document, but why should I and where should I? Does that kind of make sense? So that's fantastic, but where do I do this in this portal that IT has given me? What should the naming convention be? Where should I put it in the folder structure? Why should I do it in the first place? Because it's working pretty well when I email it to someone. So I think from my perspective, it's not just training content, it's around having tailored training for people that know and can disseminate that information specifically to the implementation for that organization. Does anyone have any comments on that?
I'm just going to say that that basically forms part of your governance, and also the fact that a lot of companies start deploying SharePoint without having information managers. Because first and foremost, if you're going to use SharePoint as a content management system, you need to have content management that know how to manage data, how the naming conventions work. And that is the problem, because it's being driven from IT perspective instead of from a business perspective.
We agree, definitely. So how many people are from the business side or are trying to drive it for a business from a business perspective?
Just to summarize what you're saying before we move next, so you were saying part of it was governance?
Governance and information management.
And actual kind of information architecture.
Yeah, because it's designing a taxonomy before you actually design SharePoint. Because if
You don't have a business owner for it.
Yeah, big
That's the
problem.
problem. You don't have a business
The business owner.
Yeah.
So
Everyone just chucks the stuff in.
and that's as a result of it being driven by IT, and not someone putting the other spin off and saying, okay, it's all around information management. How should I manage the information from a non-tech? Forget about the product. It doesn't matter actually what the product is, but how am I good? What's my information management strategy? Why am I doing this? What type of stuff should we be keeping here? What shouldn't we? How do people navigate to it? All of that kind of stuff.
So I think just to add to that governance thing, I mean, we've used it quite effectively to obviously enhance our ISO certifications, because obviously it does document control, document management. So really from the manager's way, and ISO really drives that home quite effectively. So we actually have like heads who are quality people that manage the whole ISO process, and that comes back to the governance thing. They're managing that all the time, full scope to all the documents within the system. They go through the approval process and all that. So really, from ISO, it helps to do that.
Anybody can help. The ISO guys can help me. That's what you guys do. Set standards for things like that. So.
But unfortunately, with like any system, if the design is not right, if your structure that you put in there doesn't work, you end up with 500 people or 50 people's email boxes effectively represented in SharePoint. And you need to have an information manager. You need to have somebody that actually, from a business point of view, that takes business accountability for that information and for that SharePoint portal page that is for his department owns. And he needs to lay down the criteria. So if business owns it, it will start making sense and you will start using it.
Which is going to be difficult to do when IT chose the product and they're trying to push it down. So business is immediately going to go, oh, it's just another product, please get away from me.
But is part of the problem not because you said you're getting a lot of success through using the ISO processes around it, and we've said it's business owners, it's government, a lot of governance at least. There's a common thread running through that a lot. I would say product scope ties into that. You know, if you buy and implement a Documenta, you know you're getting a document storage system and you're going to put people and processes in place to get that running. SharePoint, you're getting in everything, and you just decide today we're going to be doing document management. And we'll just expect the information architecture to come out of that. Whereas, same sort of thing. If you were to get Documentum in, you'd get people that are Documentum specialists just on document storage and information architecture, because you wouldn't necessarily do the same for SharePoint. But it sounds like we should.
No, apparently
the common thread to that is having the procedure before you even start with your page and doing anything. Write out the procedure, use a Visio diagram, whatever it takes, and know what you want out at the end. Really helped with the right implementation. The difficulty we have now is we didn't know what capable the product was beyond our own scope, and then we run into we guys now want to expand it further. Limited ourselves because we designed something, and the way we had used the approval. Well, now we've run into a limitation further down the line, and that's where we're saying that the training should have been more focused. Yes, I can go download and watch YouTube. But it's very specific, and I'll go down and I'll use that. But I don't know how it links further down the channel, and that's where I think that the full scope of the product is not known from an overview point of view.
The big picture thing.
Yeah, I think that was a great suggestion up front there, is to start a SharePoint project by putting the documentation down, putting some policies together. Even if they're not right, at least you're starting, you're giving some thought to it.
In a roadmap. So you know that today we're only going to be doing it for this, but as part of a roadmap we want to ultimately use the Excel services or whatever it might be, and you know you're going to get there, but you're actually not concentrating on that right now, but you kind of starting.
In fact, Michael, I'd argue with one of the points you raised earlier. There is a lot of training, there are a lot of videos and things like that, but I still see a lot of customers, there's a gap. There's a lot of training and material and support and blogs and stuff on IT Pro stuff, like getting SharePoint SQL Server DRP stuff set up correctly, getting SharePoint installed and configured kind of stuff. And then there's stuff right at the end, there's the end user stuff. But I don't see a lot of material around SharePoint management, kind of where it crosses over the stuff that you do in the site admin rather than site collection admin. How do you choose? Exactly what you were saying. How do you learn in order to be able to choose whether site collection or site's appropriate?
Experience in the hard way. Yeah, there is a big opportunity for that.
I've had a few businesses come to me and they say, I want to be able to do this scenario in SharePoint. And I've gone to our IT guys, I mean, they run SharePoint, right? So I've gone to them and I've asked them to do it, and they said they don't know how. And then they're getting upset with their IT department because they don't know how. But the interesting thing is the IT department that's running the SharePoint implementation are really there to make sure it's up, it's available, etc. I mean, that's typically what they've been doing. And now they're being asked to bridge the gap between the technology and a requirement and actually kind of marry the two and say, how do I actually architect this thing at a kind of a non-technical way and feed that back. And I'm finding there is a massive disconnect. So kind of the business users know what they kind of want. The techie guys have got the technology, but there's no one in the middle. Maybe it's this knowledge management, maybe it's a business productivity expert in the company. I don't know who this person is, but that person physically doesn't sit in an organization, doesn't get measured that way, doesn't have the skills in that way. I don't know if anyone's got that type of role in their company. It would be interesting.
Yeah, we've got a question at the back there.
I think it's an ownership issue. What we've got is a holdings company, and under that there's a whole lot of operational companies with their own brands and identities. We've given them a SharePoint site and said, here, use it. And some of the companies have gone crazy really using it to its full potential. They're using it for project management, and other companies don't use it at all. And the difference between the companies is that somebody in that company has a passion for SharePoint and they want the users to use it. But in the other companies, there's nobody taking ownership of their SharePoint site. So they just stick their policies on and leave it.
Having the evangelist in will make or break projects.
I think you're actually talking about a nice use of fear. What you need to do is you need to terrify the failing user.
Failure is the driver.
Because if they do fail to actually use it correctly, they're going to be in such deep cover. It's not true. And our politically correct word is visible executive sponsor. As a champion. You need an executive champion who's going to walk around and be visible and will encourage people, as this lady says, to actually use the system properly.
And how many of you in the audience have that type of sponsorship in your organization? Just by a show of hands.
And at an executive level, I mean, if it's the guy who sweeps.
So everyone put up their hands that they've got SharePoint and they're using SharePoint. So how many hands?
Virtually all.
Okay, of using SharePoint. So how many of us have an executive level sponsor?
3.
3.
4. Okay.
Which is about 4%.
You're very lucky. Hang on to those people.
So as I say, from a developer side, now we're trying to integrate all our in-house applications into SharePoint. And I must say, it's not easy to develop it in SharePoint. The tools can combine, especially if you have Windows Forms application, trying to convert it into SharePoint, that's a major mission. Web parts, developing web parts and stuff out of Visual Studio 2008 is not easy. It needs a lot of work. And it just disappoints me the tools given to a developer to develop like really applications.
So the tooling for creating in Visual Studio is poor. Okay, yeah. In 2008 it's not where it should be at all. Okay? And it will get better with 2010. It's shipping quite nicely, all tied in. But currently, I actually worry when people say we're using Visual Studio, we are writing code, we are doing workflows, because by that point you should be doing something really complicated. 80% of what I do day to day for SharePoint development is in SharePoint Designer or in the front end.
Or InfoPath.
InfoPath, yeah. I spend a lot of time in InfoPath. It's very powerful. Content query web part and the content editor web part allow you to just really go wild and have a lot of flexibility. So you need to take SharePoint in quite small steps when it comes to development and go, right, we could build everything in Visual Studio and have a nice web part that we can deploy once, it'll be great. But is that the correct approach? Is that the approach you want to go for in the long term? If we start off now and we have a small web part that does something, that's okay. But if we do the workflow in SharePoint Design and then down the line we can give that to a power user, we don't need another developer to worry about it. And that will then drive that power user to be more involved and drive the power user to sort of hopefully evangelize more and learn more. And then they start implementing their own. Drive a community to grow.
Yeah, let me follow up with that as well. Somebody asked me yesterday, they said, they're having trouble getting one of their list field lookups to bind to a custom SQL database, and they were writing a bunch of interesting pieces to tie together. I don't know if that guy's here. But I said to him, what about BDC? And he said, what about what? It's a big product, and it does a lot of stuff. Many things you can do. You are assuming enterprise calls, but a lot of I get that argument a lot, and it's a valid argument. You do need to pay more for an enterprise call, but what's the price difference? Anybody give me a offhand? I don't even know. Michael, maybe you know.
Yeah.
Standard to an enterprise.
Look, it can be significant depending on the number of users because it's licensed on a per user basis. So it can be significant, but you don't necessarily have to buy it for all the users. Okay, there are ways of splitting it up and saying, well, these set of users use the enterprise features and these users don't. So it does get complicated when you do that, but you can do that.
So there's the server cal, and then you've got the actual, or the server license at least.
The server license is minimal. It's not about that. It's about the client access license. So depending on the size of the organization, it can be very significant.
But it's also important to understand that you're not spending 200,000 Rand in getting access to 3 rows in this table. You're investing in a functionality like BDC that's a platform that you can build on for a bunch of systems. The gentleman said that he's migrating a lot of his company's applications into SharePoint. Now, if you were to invest in BDC, you would have that platform that would assist you for 10, 20, 30. I mean, we've got a client that's migrating 40 intranet applications into SharePoint. That BDC investment is going to help them across the entire board of that. It is a cost, you're not wrong. It may be prohibitive, but you do need to amortize it, I guess is the word, across all of the different expenses that you're going to get from it.
You get business these days, especially in economic climate and all. Customers are very happy if you sell them WSS the services. And then they try it out and they grow organically. A year from now, you might sell them SharePoint, Standard Edition, and they grow into that. That's just an upgrade. Then 5 years or 3 years from now, then you sell them enterprise. If you go with the whole hog, let's go enterprise, 90% of the time you're not going to get the business deal. So I work for Microsoft Partners, I'm not a customer. So I go out and I implement. And I've done a lot of SharePoint products, but a lot of them are starting off WSS. Prove it to me. Everybody's talking about SharePoint. I want to see it for free. There's some cost implications. Prove it to me. Once you prove it to me, then we'll think about buying SharePoint. And initially what happens is you have a requirement where the customer says, well, in this process of proving to me that the SharePoint works, just show me quickly that you can pull that from that database and so on. And then we climb into Visual Studio for 8 hours, we go develop something quickly and we plug it in, it works. And then we can worry about the BDC much later. See, you can't argue top down. You have to argue bottom up.
And I think you've got a valid point. So I think the overall kind of message is that depending on what you're licensed for and kind of what you've got, you may have to build code. Okay? You might have to. But there's many people out there that don't realize that you don't have to always build code for SharePoint based on what they have, even in WSS. So through SharePoint Designer, the data view web part connecting to web services, that there are many scenarios where you don't have to write code in SharePoint. And that's very important that people understand that. I know I'm a developer, right? So my first answer is always, I know how to code that. It's the first answer for everything. And A, does it need to be migrated into SharePoint in the first place? And the second question is, does it need to actually be code? Will I not get better value from maybe just doing an iframe into an existing application or the data view web part? There are other ways to do things.
So it's important to understand what's available out of the box. You can waste a lot of money building those custom things where that stuff is available out of the box. It can really overcomplicate a solution. There's no offense to the developers, but that's just that's what you do. So you need to just understand the product better, and take it from there.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, sure, not you. Okay, you.
Okay, maybe let's bring it back to the end user adoption. We raised some good points, but let's look at that again. Either of you guys want to pick up maybe on one of the other points that we've had on the board or something that's come out in the discussion? Do you remember that?
I think I've got a question. Who has a SharePoint community within inside their organization? Just by a show of hands. A SharePoint community inside your organization.
What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by, so IT's delivered SharePoint, right? And we talk about users not knowing how to do it. So some organizations, what they've done is they've assembled kind of like the lady earlier on said, they've got some champions in some of the departments that are really driving it. And so what happens is the champions start speaking to each other from the different departments, and they literally start meeting now and again, or they have like a newsletter that they share amongst themselves, or they have a tips and tricks website on SharePoint where they go and share information and do discussions. So it's kind of like a bunch of people inside of the company that start sharing ideas and tips and tricks and stuff amongst themselves so that they can get better at skills and adoption that way. You know, often I get asked to, you know, how do we send, if we take an enterprise customer, 20,000 people on training on SharePoint? It's not going to happen. So kind of that type of community inside the company. So just by a show of hands, who has a community inside the company?
5.
Okay, so about 5%.
And, you know, that picks up on that champion, and you do. I mean, that champion becomes critical. I think everybody's nodding heads on that one. And a way to do that is through that, fostering that kind of community. And I heard a great suggestion around doing that as well. Is, you know, it comes back to compelling reason, I guess, that if you try and force somebody to use the product to do their work, they'll go back to Excel and emailing that document around and so on. But sometimes what you can do is get them to use SharePoint for something totally unrelated to their main primary job. So the guy who's totally resisting absolutely everything relating to using SharePoint to do his day-to-day capturing of some sort of data would probably absolutely love to use a small little collaboration site to run the corporate social event calendar that he's doing next week, or his little golf club for the, you know, his division, something like that.
You're always going to meet somebody in an organization who's going to hate SharePoint. You can't avoid that. Somebody is going to make it their business to make your life hell and tell everybody how to use your product is. Okay. You just have to take the points that's coming and just go around them and go focus on the people who do want to use it and who do want to make a difference. And it's them, and because this product is so fantastic and it is so great, that it will catch on, and the people and it's those people who will eventually grow the platform. And eventually the doomsayers are going to have no choice but to jump on and go, okay, fine, it's all right, I suppose. So just ignore them in the beginning and just go around them. Go to the people who want to. It's easy that way. And when you're looking for your champions in your organization as well, go to the people who want to as well. If you're in charge of the platform or trying to get more site owners, go to the business guys who have got some kind of flair for it or some kind of interest in it. And they're the ones who will become your ultimate evangelists without you having to do any work at all.
And it's typically those people that you actually don't want to hear from.
Yeah.
You know, those ones that always come to you and say, how do you do this? How do you do that?
Yeah.
Well, at home I can do it this way. Those are actually your champions because they're trying things, right? They're not necessarily the lazy ones that aren't doing it. So it's the irritating ones you have to...
Yeah. Teach them and then get rid of them. Yeah. Make them your power users. They're the first point of contact for that section of business. Okay, bye, go for it. Positive. It's easier.
The problem not that Brendan, what they've done at one of our clients is quite huge, is that the IT department in this group was actually forced to use SharePoint. For all the documentation, for all the designs, there's only one site where you can get the budgets, where you can get the designs, architecture guys, test results. SharePoint is prescribed as being, okay, that's your environment. That makes them sort of understanding and supporting it and assisting the user community to do that as well. And there's a large adoption rate in it.
And is there an alternative? So, for example, can they go and store files on a file share, or have those kind of been switched off?
Switch off. You're not allowed. There's a couple of principles that in terms of information management, you're not allowed to duplicate information. So, if there's a spreadsheet that you maintain for your piece of work, you maintain that in SharePoint and you can share it. So, my documents and then mail that to somebody else, and he then knows it. That becomes sort of an unlocked environment.
Is anyone else doing that? So they've like switched off file shares and said you have to. And how's that going?
Well, what we've done is we're moving all our client servers into the cloud. So we're taking the servers out of their server rooms, we're putting it in the hosting environment. In which case, it is slower to copy a file on a file share than it is to use SharePoint.
That's the first time I've ever heard that.
Oh, slow that shit down. Yeah.
That's cruel but very clever.
And are there any other Is anyone else who's had what they would consider successful adoption? And I'd like to understand what it is that you're doing inside your organisation that makes it that way. Or what are the contributing factors?
In my case, as everyone has said, it was quite a difficult thing for our users to start using Sharp. So what we actually did was to show the important documents of Sharp. And when they request for those templates, we just ask them to log on to the site, download those templates, and do whatever they want to do with those documents. And while it's doing that, they started discovering that the actually other important documents that we actually request to Sharp. So I think the interest started to develop on there. So far, and I've got one of the directors who've been championing the use of Sharp. So I would say maybe we are 50% there, not really 100%, but you could see some improvement. When you check the daily report, you can see that actually every day you see a lot of people accessing the site and actually using it.
And how many people are in your organisation?
We are about 1,100. The one establishment, but it's a bank, so we're distributed across 8 provinces.
So let me pick up on a good point you raised. I want to ask it as a question because I think that's a great suggestion. We're talking about user adoption and we're saying it's a problem, but how many people here are actively monitoring user adoption, checking logs and polling users and surveying? Okay, 3. Also not too many. So that's another thing that you can do is monitor how it's growing and if it's growing as well. It's a good suggestion.
And I'll just say, one of the problems we have is it's extremely hard to find. You can't find documents, you don't have a tree view on the left-hand side, you don't know where you are, you got to send out massive links to people, otherwise they can't find anything. It's very difficult. That's the big thing. That's exactly
that comes down to information architecture and planning your layouts of your sites and your document libraries and things like that.
So, SharePoint's got a great search feature in it.
It doesn't work. Our one doesn't work.
Okay. Well, you've got a bigger problem. But taking that and making that more prominent, because it's tucked away in the top right-hand corner. If you take that and make it more prominent, and take sort of Bing idea and have in the center nice pictures and so on.
I think we went 2003.
Okay.
And we can't get to the...
There's some tricks you can do around it.
We can use
the search on
yeah, that's what we can't do the search. And we can't do the upgrade because it's so bad. So we won't go to the new one.
So that's a critical thing. We
that's a problem. Yeah.
But your search should still be working, right? So there's a technical problem with the implementation, right? Search should be working. It's not working. So that needs to be fixed.
People need it. They need to get negative, I don't rubbish.
Absolutely.
I gave a talk this morning on search, and I spent an hour just discussing. I mean, we barely even touched on diving into the features, but we spent an hour just discussing some of the features of what you can do with search for exactly that reason. The actual search feature out of the box is appalling. It's what's the word we used? It is, but unfortunately, it's the kind of feature that people do at next finished and think, cool, search is working. Obviously in 2003, 2007 as well. But when you install the product, that's when it comes to search. When you install the product, that's when your work only begins to start. There's a fortune of stuff and a fortune of value you can get through configuring and adding all kinds of value in search, but you need to do all the work around getting that search product right.
You know the tree view though, why don't you have a tree view?
There is a setting for that.
There is.
You can go and enable it, yeah. Enable tree view.
But tree view is not necessarily appropriate. I mean, we've got a client with 8 terabytes of documentation they want to move into SharePoint. That's going to be a big tree. To be frank, search becomes and things like the content query become, or the web parts become a lot of that. But search becomes critical in that. What you could look at, maybe one of you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is Search Server Express even. Sticking on top of 2003, just using the search product, you get a lot of value there.
Yeah, Search Server Express is free, so download it and get that running on a different machine, point it to your existing environment and start off with that. Get search maybe working in that, and then
I think that works.
But you are in terms of end user adoption, it's a critical thing. You know, you spend all the time putting stuff in, and you lose your credibility if people just can't find the stuff. It's a critical portion of it. Sorry, what did you say?
Something with regards to the user adoption. Basically, I work for a competition documenting, and what we did with the user.
Don't let him out. Huh?
I know it basically worked with the user adoption because I got users, 10,000 users over from using PowerShell to documenting within 6 months. Same principle you can probably apply with SharePoint. And what we had with documenting, we had an offline client that basically assisted the users in getting the documents to their desktop. It looks like their desktop. It looks like they're actually using their My Documents folder. So they're not really saving the documents on PowerShell, they're actually saving it on Documentum. With SharePoint, we basically don't have an offline client. We have Outlook, and users don't use it at all. So I think with 2010, it will probably increase the user adoption more. Now, with us, what we did in Documentum, and also we had an information manager, which obviously they designed the taxonomy first and then forced it from PHP Bulletin in Australia right down to all the countries. So that's basically what assisted us in getting the user adoption. So it was forced from a management perspective, and the taxonomy was designed before the software was out.
But you put the last point you brought up there is that SharePoint's not just, hi, here's my SharePoint server. Outlook has full integration to it, Word has integration, PowerPoint has integration, Access has integration, Excel has integration. Okay, these are tools that are designed
File
to...
Explorer.
File Explorer's got Windows 7 Search, Groove. These are tools that the moment you start showing users, well, hey, you can use Outlook and have all your documents offline, that's a big win, right? Users, going to create a calendar in SharePoint, you want to create a recurring calendar appointment, it's a horrible experience in SharePoint. Use Outlook, it's nice and simple. Manage a list in Excel, very nice and simple. Okay? These sort of little things that now they're using tools that they're familiar with instead of this other product really helps get them on board and working with it.
And on that kind of that you're talking about them dumping documents into this thing that they're familiar with. I've also seen a customer, what they did is they mapped a network drive for every user to their My Documents folder on their SharePoint My Site. The user didn't know it was going into SharePoint, they just thought it was a file share. And not many people know about that, so that's potentially another way. Just be aware, obviously you bypass metadata when you do that, so it's more for the kind of the My Documents ad hoc stuff, but it's an option. You map a network drive to a SharePoint document library and the user doesn't know any different.
I think in companies they know you want to get that back, that document. They don't have to browse through thousands of folders. They go to their SharePoint site, they go, with date change, sort, it's easy.
Yeah, and they're obviously getting things like versioning and things like that as well.
Just to say, one of the things that we found actually helped us quite a bit was the discussion thread. Instead of it just being a little item on the bottom of each of the sites, we actually moved it to the top. And users started now discussing openly things that were going around this, because we don't allow Facebook and other things. So we tried to encourage that people do want to have that kind of ability, so we just brought it to the forefront and allowed them to use it, but now within our company space. And amazing, as they start fiddling with one thing, somebody mentions something, then they go look at the other person's site, and then you're suddenly starting to see these things migrate from people's sites because it's become a relevant discussion topic, and everyone starts chatting about it. So it's also helped quite a bit in terms of the community driven.
Yeah, there's another nice trick, and actually going on what Hilton said about, if you're trying to get adoption, getting them to put your secondary sort of job aspects into there. Most companies have a foosball league or a darts league or an action cricket league in the company. Find out who runs that in your company and ask them if you can put the scoreboard on the SharePoint site and the photos on the SharePoint site. And then people will start going there to see that and sort of drive it. And you're starting to drive somebody, 2 or 3 people who are going to manage that and sort of start to skill up in SharePoint when it's not part of their jobs.
And the social networking aspect is also important because, like you said, most companies do block Facebook and all those things. And if you can show them how that stuff can map nicely to SharePoint, because a lot of it does, you can say, well, don't worry about all that Facebook stuff. You can use it here internally. My site is my little Facebook, and all your blogs out there. Well, you've got blogs on SharePoint too. Do them internally, and just do all those little, connect all the dots for them, and they'll start using it eventually. But you're also going to give them a bit of freedom to talk. Don't say we monitor everything that you say, and you're going to get fired if you say this. That's not going to help. Obviously, there's got to be balance between the governance and allowing your business users to express themselves and to experiment with the product. So, fine line.
Are there any other scenarios where you think you've got good user adoption and what you're doing specifically?
We found that with ours internally not so good because users are set in their ways and they don't want to adapt to SharePoint. But with our customers, we found that customers actually accepted it readily than our users because they see it as the first point of contact now. They can readily just check how their projects are going, collaborate with the developers and project managers, and they're using it better than users basically.
I was trying to keep the different, the different generations as well. You know, there's X and Y's and baby boomers, and it's mad how differently each of those groups look at SharePoint. Because all of like the young 25-ish, the lowers are going like, cool, reprogram the whole of SharePoint, and the older generation kind of goes, what? And trying to keep all those groups happy and trying to get everybody trained up and trying to get everybody to use that platform is difficult. It's not easy.
And just on that point, one of the interesting scenarios, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, what I think that's all about basically is the external parties working with you as an organization, whether they're partners or customers. They probably didn't have a way to work effectively, and now you've given them something they couldn't do before.
They depended mostly on FTP
and now
email,
awesome.
and now they've got this platform where they can just go and check what's happening with their project.
Whereas internally, I can still just email my document, or I can still just put it on the file share. So it's kind of, if it's,
It's kind of forcing them to not sending those documents out around information policies on SharePoint. You can give them access to see the document, but then won't be able to download the document or make a copy of the document. Even if, again, this is where your exchange guys have to limit the size of emails that you can send out internally. So, I mean, obviously, if there's external emails that they need to send, they can obviously still send those emails. But internally, they will be forced to upload it document to SharePoint.
Make them feel better. Tell me a story about that Excel document.
Okay, I'll tell you
So
two
even
stories.
the king of companies.
Okay, so I'll tell you two stories. So the first story is at Microsoft, it's an easy problem to solve because we just reward people. Seriously. So we give away Xboxes, money. We just, if you've done something well, so the top contributor, we're going to look at their content. If they've done well, have an Xbox. Seriously. So we get a lot of adoption and stuff by doing that. If we don't get people to do stuff, then you reward them and then suddenly they'll start doing it. So we just give money and prizes. So that's one thing you might want to consider. If anyone's here from Anglo, maybe you can give some platinum away or something. I'll come and work for you.
We're in somewhere.
The other scenario is this. So this is even Microsoft. And I know he's going to kill me.
He is going to so kill us for this.
So what happened was, when we came down here, we have to organize all our flights, and they need to know who's going when. Are you going on a flight? Are you driving down? When you're arriving? When you're departing? So how does he gather this information? He sends out an Excel spreadsheet with the columns to everyone in the company, 250, and he says, each person, please put your first name, your last name, date of arrival, date of departure, when you're going. So he got 250 Excel documents back, and now he's got to merge all of this stuff.
And they've got SharePoint in it as well.
So I don't know how much time he wasted doing it, but if you just sent out a link to a SharePoint list that had those columns, and to the new link, so not even to the look of just the new link, send that out, clicks the link, captured information, click OK, done. Everyone goes into one list, he exports it to Excel, he saved himself a whole lot of time. So there's a scenario where user adoption actually, it's not clunky, it's actually a lot easier, but he didn't know how to do that, he didn't realize that was in the product. So my solution, my scenario, is at our company meeting, I'm going to stand up for 5 minutes and tell everyone how they can save themselves 8 hours. And so that's my solution. Whether it works or not, I'm not too sure. But that's my story.
So the thing is, the point of a story like that is, whoever your SharePoint champion is in the organization needs to look for scenarios like that, because it happens a lot all over the show. And the second you see it is to go to those people, because they're not going to know, and to go to them and say, do you know there's actually an easier way to do this? Now click here, do this, what have you tried out? And they're going to go, oh, that's so cool. You go, yeah. And but if somebody has to be there to do the hand holding and to do the walking the floors and to monitor all the stuff, because if they don't, it's just going to fall flat. But not every company has that luxury. It's like we were saying for the skills thing. Everybody says, okay, you've got a SharePoint expert, okay, they're going to install it and maintain all the infrastructure and do all the development and the end user training and be the product champion, and that's like 5 different people. So there's a huge misconception about what a SharePoint person is in a company.
So who's actually defined the roles explicitly in their organizations? One. Two.
Okay, let's hear it.
Say again?
4. Out of a customer or partner perspective, because they're different.
Well, I guess either. I mean, the cobbler's children always have the worst shoes, so I won't ask what you're doing internally. But at a customer side, I mean, are you actively encouraging your customer to define those roles?
Well, our customers all argue that they can't employ SharePoint resources. They don't want to employ SharePoint content managers, so it's sort of outsourced. The way I've structured my team is basically I do the architecture, the small content. I've got a dedicated content architect manager, information architect. I've got a graphics designer, and I've got 2 SharePoint devs. And between the 5 of us, we run about 10-12 sites and growing. So, because one customer doesn't keep you busy all the time, you go in there, you do something, you walk away for a couple of weeks, you go back again. So I think we've got the structure with our partner, Microsoft partner down pat. I try and convince my customers that once we've gone in and you've actually implemented it, you've managed your content, you've designed it, you need to employ somebody to take ownership of it. Most of them don't. So they always prefer just to escalate to our help desk and we go back and we help them. And then we end up signing SLAs to support.
So it keeps you employed, but it's not necessarily the best.
It's not ideal, What did you do?
Yeah, we outsource most of our IT. We're quite small, so it was quite important for us to define those roles. Now we want to obviously retain the intellectual property in the business, so I've got business analysts and project managers and obviously head of IT and all that handle their roles. But even the Moss admin, we've outsourced that, and then there's the infrastructure part as well. And it was quite difficult to sort of draw a line in the sand between those guys. So we had to go through a couple of AC workshops. And I think we've got it come down to something that works. That's how it goes.
My question was just to come back to the development stuff, and the gentleman raised it and you've raised it as well. One of the things we have major difficulty with is the links, sending out these links. We say, yeah, just send the link. But it's not as easy as that, because to send it, just the new button link is a piece of code this long, and users kind of get they get not confused, but it's just too much. You know, it's easier for you and I to go say right-click hyperlink, and we create the hyperlink and we put it in. Users don't want to do that. They want to have a quick right-click button, send spreadsheet. Like you would in Excel, file send to send this to spreadsheet. It doesn't have a file send link.
So it's amazing because in SharePoint it's got that. So you go to a document, you click on it, you say send to as email, and it opens the email and the link's in there.
In fact, you can do that as well in IE. I think you can say whatever this web page is on the tools. Somewhere on the tools menu, you can send that as a link as well. So that isn't an option, but it's again training. So that's hidden because that's an IE feature. It's not a SharePoint feature.
But the new button. I want to say.
Okay, no, the new button's a different one.
Yeah. No, I'm saying the actual active content that's in there. If you click on it, it actually is active content. I want to send the link to active content.
Yeah, there you are. Yeah.
I think there's a common misconception about support. I think most people know the system of management by walking around. You walk around and see what's going on. People have help desks. I would ban the desk part of help and insist that people support by walking around. So they have a cell phone, and these people walk around the office, and they have a schedule that you go visit the department once a week or once a month or once every 3 months. Depends on your resources. So you don't have a help desk, you have a help cell phone.
I love that idea.
And he helps you there and then, and he'll help you with the other 2 problems that you actually have to ask me about. So you have a schedule, going to visit people and sitting with them and helping, maybe 10 minutes, an hour, something like that.
I think that would accomplish a lot of different things, because I think when you sit with the user, first of all, they mention all the other problems that they didn't bother to tell you about. And to some degree, I think it would help culturally as well. As soon as the guy puts the phone down, all he does is complain to his friend about crappy user. Actually meet the users.
Outstanding idea.
They set guidelines to for every 1,000 users there should be 5 people supporting SharePoint.
I think it depends on the users. There's users and then there's users.
I haven't seen any guidelines around that. It depends what you're using it for. Is it the intranet site? Is it a collaboration platform? What are you doing with it? So, no, there isn't. But it's something that would be interesting to actually go and sit and think about.
That would help a lot of companies with their deployment so that they know what to plan for and what to look for. But now they can actually, like you said, rather training out their staff up instead of training project. And instead of making everyone a site owner or a site collection owner.
Do you think there's going to be an issue with that? Because unless the product, I don't know, the champion guy, the guy who chose it, what's the guy called? Project sponsor. Unless he understands, or whoever bought the product for the company understands exactly what that product can do, they're not going to understand how much support it takes to run that thing. Because trying to change anything or get proper support on SharePoint takes a hell of a lot longer than most people understand. And mostly the management of most companies don't really get that. Just go and change this up. But I don't realize it takes 3 days to do that.
But you don't know that up front.
No, that's what I'm saying. You don't know that up front. So it's going to be difficult to ever get that right unless the person who's chosen SharePoint understands it through and through, then you can make the proper call.
The other thing you can do that is just manage your help desk calls, your help cell phone resolution time. See how many issues that are coming through help desk are SharePoint related, and what's the kind of turnaround time, what tends to be the most common stuff. So 90% of our calls are just that users can't figure out how to check in documents. That kind of guides you towards what we need to do. And those will change over time as well as your acceleration changes, as your user adoption acceleration changes.
And as they get smarter.
Yeah.
And they get smart real quick.
I think, look, with SharePoint, there's just so many things you need to be worried about, or in deployment side of things. For people that are new and going to deploy SharePoint, they need to plan it in a way of maybe 6 months. Start with only maybe the intranet side. Then bring in maybe collaboration and then workflow and those type of things. Instead of just putting down the whole thing and then, so as you go slowly, step by step, once they've done everything, they go move on to the next step.
One of the recent podcasts, I had a chat with a guy named Sahil Malik, and he gave some interesting guidelines on how to start by turning this stuff off and in what order, and unlocking those pieces bit by bit. I think that tends to be a common approach as well, is try and dumb this stuff down, My sites, for example, is a common one, but a lot of people don't know that it's quite easy to turn my sites off. If you want to, it might be appropriate for you, but that kind of stuff, turn off as much as you can, or what you think is important.
So just on something interesting we found, we decided we're just going to do documents in the beginning and turn everything else off and just take it step by step. But it went very slow, and it just took us forever to get, and we went through department by department. But recently we were under pressure to put in something up for the project office. Now, the project office takes everywhere in the business. But all of a sudden it's just mushroom. People are just loving it because they're experiencing that collaboration and so on. So I'm actually thinking it maybe would have been better to get the collaboration out first and then worry about your documents once the users were familiar with it.
And I guess it's solving a specific business requirement. So it's coming down to, actually there's really a need for it, let's give it to them, versus this technology is cool and I can see why I'd rather put a document there rather than send an email link and hope people are going to use it.
With us, though, it was quite difficult to do the gradual deployment, like how we defined it, because we had a Microsoft person come before the deployment and sell our features to everyone. So when
is this where I live?
Was it me? A Microsoft gives a Michael or somebody.
Microsoft, what?
That was my predecessor.
So when it came time to do the deployment, what we planned to do to gradually introduce features to people just didn't happen, because everyone is coming and saying, oh, but the guy said there's this feature that I want to use. So it kind of like overwhelmed us, and we had to just throw the features out there.
See, selling Ferraris.
Yeah, so I'll take a look, man.
No, it's not just you.
Okay, good.
Or Microsoft users. But that's the problem with vendors in general. No offense to any SharePoint vendors out here, but it is a general problem. They go out there, they sell all the biggest, the BDCs, all the best stuff, but geez, all we want to do is fill in a leaf form. But you could have actually just had a beetle in the beginning. Baby steps. So managing the expectation is a big one as well.
Okay, cool. Guys, thanks.
Thank you.
Gone.
If you've got any questions about any of the ideas discussed in this episode, or you'd like to give other feedback, like show topics or requests, then mail us at feedback@TheMossShow.com. To access the archives of all of our shows, browse to www.themossShow.com or www.TheMossShow.com.